We're a PIM services and solutions business, and I'm here this morning to give you a rerun of the talk I did at IRX in Birmingham a few weeks ago called Is Your Product Data Ready for AI? So today I'm going to tell you why structured product data really is the gateway to AI discovery and buying decisions. We're going to go for about probably 25-30 minutes. Feel free to ask any questions in the chat box, and I can certainly pick them up at the end or after the session. So let's crack on.
That sounds like a great session.
Oh, and that's my AI agent that I'm about to demo. So yeah, so I want to tell you a quick story to begin with, right? So I want you to imagine that you're a procurement manager and you're probably working at a mid-sized manufacturing business, and you've got a conveyor line outdoors and the motor's just failed, a bit like the one on the screen now. And you need to find a replacement. And it doesn't just need to be any motor. It needs to be IP65 rated. It probably needs to be 5 to 10 kilowatts, 3-phase. It needs to be compatible with EU voltage, and it needs to be suitable for outdoor washdown conditions. And you don't have any time to flick through catalogues or email 5 different suppliers. So I did a little experiment with this, and I asked an AI agent to help me. And I used ChatGPT. I've got ChatGPT on my phone right now, and I'm going to actually give it a go for you live. So may regret this because sometimes it's a bit unreliable, but here we go. I need an IP65 rated 5 to 10 kilowatt 3-phase motor for a conveyor system in an outdoor environment, and it must be EU voltage compatible.
Those are a couple of solid choices. The one electric machine YX3 225SA and the BM series from MGM should both work well for your setup. Just make sure to double check availability and delivery times, especially if you need it quickly.
So it cut out a little bit, but it's given me some recommendations, right? And the thing is, whether you think that result is good or bad, it wasn't just created by magic. It actually came from data, right? And it came from structured, accurate, interpretable data. And the reason data is really important and structured data is really important to AI agents like ChatGPT is because AI doesn't guess, right? It actually reasons. And it only reasons if you actually give it something to reason with in the first place. So I just want to pause for a second, right? Because I think that AI agents like the one I just showed you are kind of behaving a lot like people used to. So, back in the day, what did you do when you needed a new part? Well, you'd ask someone in the plant, you'd probably flick through a binder or a distributor catalog like the one from the 1970s on the screen there, or you pull up a PDF spec sheet. But the thing is, now in 2025, that first step is actually happening without you, right? There's a machine doing the reasoning, and it's doing it with data. So I just want to zoom out a little, right? There's a really good quote here from a guy called Kai-Fu Lee. He's one of the leading voices in AI innovation. And he was kind of like the former head of Google China. He was the author of this book called AI Superpowers. And there's a quote from him. And it says that data is the new oil. And while oil powered the Industrial Revolution, data fuels the AI revolution. The more data you have, the better your AI algorithms can understand human intent and predict behavior. So this really is the shift we're seeing now, right? It's not just that AI needs data. That's pretty obvious, right? It's that commerce is being rerouted through AI systems that choose what is seen and what's ignored. So in the case of my example with ChatGPT, it recommended some products, right? And in the past, structured data was about filters, right? You think about, back in the day, early e-commerce site filters, comparison tables, and drop-down specs. But today, it's about visibility. in this AI-powered discovery layer like ChatGPT. So the reality is, if your data isn't structured and enriched and aligned to buyer intent, then you may not be seen, recommended, or chosen in these new channels for discovery. So the idea of structured data hasn't changed, right? The thing is, what's changing is the stakes, the volume and the pace of this data. And there's a certain number of platforms leading the shift. I just showed you one, ChatGPT. I would recommend, if you haven't tried all these platforms, you should go and try them out. And in particular, try their product recommendation side of their platform. Give them queries on product recommendations. These platforms are not browsing catalogues. They're interpreting context. They are passing intent, and they're expecting product data that they can act on. And don't just take my word for it here, right? There's some really kind of quite incredible stats in the market. So between October and January last year, Amazon.com was the #1 domain referred by ChatGPT. And why was that? Well, because it has structured product data. Amazon's website, commerce website, is all about structured product data. And that data is the sort of data that AI models love, because they can consume that data and drive intent-based content. So it's happening now, right? This is real, and it's happening now. And a lot of businesses and B2B teams are just not ready for it. So if we zoom out and look kind of how we got here, right? So, what you're seeing on the screen is a timeline of disruption, I like to call it. And it's a timeline of disruption for digital buying. And we've all lived through this progression, So in the early days, we had, the early days of e-commerce. It was all about search. Buyers had to know what they were looking for. You typed a keyword and you got a list. You filtered, you scrolled, and the systems weren't really helping us that much in this buying journey. They were very passive. It was like, if you don't ask, you don't get. So structured data kind of mattered, but really only for filtering and SEO purposes. And then we moved into this recommendations era. And if you were in an e-commerce role, probably 10 years ago, you would have seen this real push for machines starting to nudge you. So it's people also bought. You might also complete the set. So in this era, discovery wasn't just reactive; it was more predictive. The systems were trying to help us, but this phase was more about behavioral data, clicks, purchases, sessions. But it still relied on surface level product tags and hierarchy to drive those experiences. Now we're in the age of AI agents. I've just shown you one. And then, just for those that don't know, an AI agent is a software system that performs tasks autonomously. And it performs these tasks on behalf of a user or another system, and it utilizes AI to achieve specific goals. AI agents can learn, reason, plan, and make decisions with a pretty good degree of autonomy now. And they often employ tools like LLMs and APIs and other agents to accomplish these tasks. So these agents are not waiting for your keywords anymore, right? You can express a goal, a need, a constraint, and you can do that all in natural language. And those systems interpret that natural language. So as you saw, instead of saying IP65 motor as a keyword, we could say something like, I need a quiet, weatherproof motor for a food-safe environment available for next-day delivery. The agents understand those sorts of goals, needs, and constraints requirements. They don't browse category pages, right? They reason, shortlist, explain back to you. But they can only do that if they have structured product data to reason with. And this is really the first time the word intent enters the equation. It's a really important word in the age of AI product discovery, because now we're moving into the future, right? We're not stopping here. This is where we're headed, right? We're headed to the autonomous buying era. This is where, in the future, agents will act on your behalf. So they'll be able to reorder supplies, select components, book replacements. They won't just be recommending, they will be executing these discovery and purchase tasks. They may even know about your budget, your specs, your system integrations, your location. and they'll make the purchase for you. But really, here's the big tension, right, that I am seeing in the market from talking to a lot of customers today. Most companies are struggling to get even the basic product attributes structured, let alone maintaining the kind of real, like, broad, contextual, intent-ready data that these AI agents and LLMs need to operate on. So this isn't a prediction, right? It's already in motion. So I'm going to show you some, some examples of this, right? What's already live. So the first example I want to show you is something called Google SG, the Search Generative Experience. Now, I can guarantee you that you've seen this on Google. It's being rolled out more and more on Google search results. So there's an example of it on a screen. This isn't a prototype, right? It's not a demo. It's a live experiment to rewire the way people search on Google. And it's rolling out right now. I think it's going out to about 20% of the market. It may even be more now, 20% of searchers. So here's a good example, right? I searched on Google for a good bike with a 5-mile commute, for a 5-mile commute up hills. Now, I'm not a cyclist. I don't profess to be. If I was, I'd probably have all the gear, no idea. But, if I was going to become a cyclist, I wanted to commute to work, I'd probably search for something like that. And the thing is, that search I put in there, it's not a keyword, right? It's an intent. It's an expression of intent. If you look at the search, right, it implies terrain type, use case, budget sensitivity, comfort preference, and product performance. And look at the amazing result that I got. So Search Generative Experience from Google doesn't just give you a list of links. It gives you things like a summary of key factors. It gives you a short list of matching products. It gives you snippets from specs and reviews. And the reason it gives it all this to you is because those products were structured and enriched to answer that intent-based query. And there's a quote from Google right at the top: listings are updated constantly from information brands and posts across the web. And I believe Google SG is built on the shopping graph, Google Shopping Graph, a huge data set of 35 billion product listings. So that's now what you're competing with, and one really good example. The next example is what I showed you is ChatGPT. Everyone knows ChatGPT is a writing tool, right? We all use it. But what's less known now is actually it's becoming more of a discovery engine for products. So here's a live example: Nike Air Force Ones on sale. ChatGPT replies with product cards, real items, real pricing, real sources, all pulled from the web. So it's not guessing, it's not hallucinating, it's actually surfacing results from structured product data based on the query that you give it. And this is what OpenAI themselves said. Any website or merchant can appear in ChatGPT search if your data is discoverable, structured, and accessible to our crawler. There's a web crawler they use called OAI Searchbot. It crawls public websites that haven't opted out. It indexes structured content so ChatGPT can reference it. So if your product data is unstructured, incomplete, or hard to parse, or just simply inaccessible, which is what a lot of B2B businesses' product data is, because they often behind portals, then you're going to be ignored from these sorts of these sorts of generative AI results. So this is what I mean when you say your product data is now your new storefront, right? There is, this is kind of a new model, right? If you look at this screen, there's no page layout, there's no rich imagery, there's no homepage branding, there's no beautiful like buttons everywhere and calls to action. It's just structured, machine readable data. And if your data doesn't tell that story, you simply won't appear. So let's move on now from discovery to decision, right? This is where it gets really interesting. So this is Perplexity AI. Perplexity was originally a Q&A engine, and now it's turning into more of a full stack commerce assistant. You can test it out yourselves. Here, a user type, find me the best price for Apple Watch SE aluminium case sport band, right? What does the AI do? It doesn't just respond with text. It finds matching products. It surfaces structured pricing and spec data. It returns a shortlist, and it even enables one-click checkout through Buy with Pro. which I believe is being integrated with Shopify. So you can effectively purchase directly from the agent itself. And that's all from one question, right? It's all powered by structured product data. And Perplexity themselves said, we're turning product questions into product purchases powered by real-time structured data. Behind the scenes, they're crawling live listings, they're matching structured attributes, and they're filtering product logic. They're not doing that by keyword, right? And if you're a retailer or distributor, you can actually upload your products now to Perplexity's merchant program, and you can get your products into their AI models, and you can influence what will show up to buyers when they ask questions like this on Perplexity. So hopefully getting the picture, right? This isn't a maybe someday story. It's happening right now, and it's heading fast into B2B and B2C product discovery, and where technical specs, compatibility matter more than your brand, frankly. So let's kind of bring this all together, right? Across every platform we've seen ChatGPT, we've seen Google, we've seen Perplexity. There's one thing that they all have in common. Your products are being discovered, evaluated, and shortlisted by machines before humans even show up. So this is the new customer journey, everyone. It doesn't start with a click. It starts with an expression of intent. So if we think about this journey, right, the buyer expresses an intent. They express a goal or a keyword. They don't express three-phase motor. They express something like, I need an IP65 rated motor that can run outdoors, low maintenance, 400 volt compatible. They're expressing an outcome. They're not expressing a SKU anymore. And then the AI agent can interpret this, you know, whether that's ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, and translate that into a structured query. So it's not search there. The model, the AI agent is comprehending the what you're giving it, and it's reasoning. It's saying, like, what is the buyer trying to solve here? And then the agent matches this to the intent you're expressing to a product data graph. This is structured data, specs, tags, compliance, compatibility information. And that's where your product either becomes visible or disappears. AI isn't guessing, right? It's filtering, it's scoring, and it's reasoning. But it will only do that if you give it something to reason with. And then finally, we get the answer, right? The agent responds. It's recommending your product, or it literally skips it. The buyer would never even know you were in the mix. So, you know, the takeaway from this is, if you're not optimizing for search results anymore. You're optimizing for intent answers. That's the big shift, right? This is the average product entry in any legacy ERP. It's probably what the average product looks like in a lot of your businesses, if you're listening. Title and a description. That's it. Now, this information is written for human, right? It's not written for a machine. There's no structure, attributes, no standard units of measure, values. The system doesn't know what IP rating it has. It doesn't know if it's waterproof, single, three-phase, or what the size frame is. So to a human, this is pretty vague, right? But to a machine, it's literally invisible. And this is how most product data looks today, especially in B2B. And it's a reason that your products won't show up when AI is doing the buying. So now we're talking a little bit more, right? You know, this is a more kind of elaborated product record. This is what most people think of when we say structured product data. You've got defined attributes, you've got values in the right format, you've got units and standards in place. This is the kind of data that lets you power product filters, comparison tables, feed e-commerce platforms and PIM systems, and kind of support quoting tools and product discovery experiences. It's a big step forward, right? But the thing is, structured data like this doesn't necessarily mean smart data. Structured just means readable, right? So this data lets the system understand what the product is, but it still can't tell whether it solves the buyer's actual problem. See, there's no context, there's no application logic, there's no connection to intent in this data. So far we've talked about descriptive data, the kind of stuff that looks nice in a brochure, and then we looked at structured data, so what powers filters and search bars. But really, this is when the hard work starts, right? Because you know, what we need is intent-ready contextual data, and there really is a lot of it, right? It's the kind of difference between saying something like, here's a motor, and here's something like saying, here's a motor, it can run outdoors, it can resist humidity, it's compatible with your controller, it's available for next day delivery in France, it won't void warranty if pressure washed. The fact is that the data AI actually needs is not just what is the product, but it's like, is it suitable, is it available, and is it supported? And there's a lot, right? Application context, environmental conditions, compatibility methods. This is all stuff relating to the the product I showed you at the beginning. Digital assets, operational details, social proof and real world context, logistics and delivery, support and warranty, regulatory and market fit. The fact is that think of it like this: if structured data gets you into a conversation, then this sort of intent ready data gets you shortlisted on those agentic platforms I showed you earlier. So, let's just talk quickly a little bit about intent as well. So I've talked a lot about intent, and if you deconstruct the sort of queries that I highlighted earlier, an expression of intent as a buyer really is an outcome and a load of constraints and a context, right? So the buyer's saying, what are they trying to achieve? The constraints are, what are the buyer's limits or non-negotiables? And the context is kind of the conditions or dependencies that they want to specify about the product being used in. When you're thinking about the type of data that you create, like the broad set of data I showed you just before, you need to think about this kind of intent equation, and then you need to align your data to these components of the intent expression of intent. So you're probably wondering, how do we get our product data AI ready? So here's a stack. We all like a good stack, right? If we work in technology, you don't start at the top, you start at the bottom. You start with a structured schema and taxonomy. This is your foundation. If you don't have a shared structure, no amount of AI is going to save you, right? And then it's really about completeness. It's about data enrichment and accessibility to that information by these AI agents. Completeness, getting the detail in, making it machine readable and keeping it fresh. Thirdly, it's then about AI interfaces. Only then can an AI agent search platform do anything useful with the data if it can actually access your data. Otherwise, it's just noise. And then finally, we've got the buyer experience. And this is what the buyer sees, whether it's Google, ChatGPT, or PIM, a product page, a shopping bot on your website. Everything flows from the quality of that underlying data. And the fact is, if you skip the foundation, all of the AI magic collapses like a kind of big Jenga tower, effectively. So how do you actually do this? And how do you get your product data AI ready? Well, here's the process. So this kind of process applies whether you've got 1,000 SKUs or 1 million SKUs. Our business are helping many customers with this exact process. So there's kind of 4 steps, right? The first step is build that foundational schema. Start with the structure, define the right attributes, units, values for each product type. This is really your blueprint, right? This tells the AI what your products are. And then you need to audit your data, right? You need to see what's missing out of all those attributes and structure you define. What's inconsistent? What's unusable by a machine? And once you've done that, then you really need to start enriching that data with intelligence. You can use supplier input. You can use your internal sources. You can use AI tools. You can use experts to fill the gaps. Don't just guess. You need to enrich based on the facts about your products. And yes, it is intensive. It involves resource, time, cost, effort, and it's a big, heavy lifting program. And then finally, you need to align that data to your buyer intent. And this is really where it's important. Don't just stop at spec attributes, right? You should tag products with use cases, applications, buying context. Really elaborate your products to cover all of those different types of intent-based data that are required. That is what AI systems actually use to recommend or reject your products. Okay. So this is the new reality, right? Your buyer isn't a person anymore. It's going to be an AI agent. Well, in some cases, it already is an AI agent. So, whether it's ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini, Claude, Copilot, the the fact is that these AI agents aren't answering questions anymore. They're researching, they're comparing, they're buying. It's not about future-proofing, it's about right now. And so the question you should be going back and asking, your businesses and your leadership team is our product data AI ready? So that's the end of the talk, guys. It's been really great presenting to you this morning. I'm Ben from Start With Data. Our business are specialists in structuring and enriching product data with both humans and AI. We run free proof of concept. So, you're welcome to send us, 10, 20, 50 of your SKUs, and we can run enrichment on them to show you the quality that we can enrich to. If you have any questions following this talk, please feel free to reach out to me on email, connect with me on LinkedIn. I love to talk about AI. It really is revolutionizing product data and e-commerce, and it's going to be a fascinating next couple of years ahead. With that note, thanks for listening, and look forward to talking to you soon.